Andrew, welcome to the Virtual CMO podcast. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey, glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
You know, it's funny, that's called the Virtual CMO podcast, but we actually have two virtual CMOs here today, which is great. Virtual CMO, fractional CMO, CMO on demand, whatever you want to call us. It's great to have some company on the show.
Yeah, I was going to rename it CMOs or Us, but someone told me that was taken.
Yeah, that's funny. That's funny. So I would love to hear, as we start out, just to give the audience a little bit of background on yourself and how you came to start up Fangled Tech, your consulting company.
All right. Well, originally the group was called the Deutsch Group, and I began my work years ago in Central Florida, and then 10 years working and growing the business in the south of Brazil. And when I came back to the States, a troll had taken my name and registered it and then wanted to charge me for it. So at that same time, I had gone to work for one of my clients as part of their company for a period of time, and decided when I came out, rather than fight with the troll and go through all the legal, I needed to come up with a clever name that really said who we were and, got the brand recognition that we would want going forward. So it was a conversation with some of the folks that we were working with. And what kind of a company are you? Well, we're not newfangled, because we really do what's great, and we're not old fangled because we're modern and we deal with it. So we're right in the moment. We're fangled. And
I love that.
Became Fangled Tech.
We were talking just before the broadcast started about the importance of a brand story and the ability for a brand to be recognized. I've had a few guests on the show that they'll wear a certain color. I had a nice lady on the show, and she wore a pink scarf every time that she was doing a public appearance, and another one that wore a green dress, and a guy that wore a purple shirt or a tie. And it's nice to have something about your brand that's recognizable, so that when people see you, they equate your brand with you.
Absolutely. And the thing is, everyone says your brand needs to be memorable, but memorable for the right things.
That's absolutely right.
You don't want to be remembered for the kinds of things that destroy brands. You want to be remembered for the great work that you do and the problems that you solve for your clients.
That's so true. And I really want to get into that a little bit more with you because, we're both seasoned veterans. We've been around the game for a long time. And, in marketing, there's quite a breadth of skill that's out there. There are a lot of companies that tend to hire in, young people right out of school to manage their social media or whatnot. And oftentimes we also see that marketing is a function that is given off to another executive within the organization, a VP of sales and marketing.
Mm-hmm.
How do you look at the range of experience that's out there, and really what differentiates somebody with experience in marketing with somebody who maybe doesn't have that seasoned skill?
It's something that I've been talking about quite a bit lately. There's an issue across the boards outside of our field in the U.S. and abroad now, where folks value someone's confidence far more than their competence. So you get a kid right out of school who studied marketing and has a good understanding of it, but at the end of the day, what they really have is a toolkit. They know about SEO. They know about all of these pieces that are tools. The true seasoned marketing guys are the ones that recognize tools change every year, but the core of marketing is understanding how to build a strategy, to really go back and say, well, who are our customers? What do they look like? What's their persona? What do they want? What are the problems that we can solve for them? Do I have one type? Do I have various types? And then really understand who they are, where they are, how to reach them, and how to truly solve the problems that you now know that they have.
Just because you use social media in your personal life doesn't mean you're an expert in social media, right?
Yeah, and it's fascinating to me. Like, for example, you'll come across somebody who will tell you, well, I know I'm successful in marketing because I can drive 200,000 people to a website a day. I can get someone 30,000 followers within a week. And you kind of go, okay, but what does that do for you? Are those followers people who could do business with you? Are you interested in vanity or prosperity? And most of my client work is in the industrial sort of niche market space. So if you were to ask me, would you want 30,000 connections on LinkedIn? I would say, well, it depends. Are the 30,000 connections people who I can benefit or who can do business with me? Or am I going to be trying to look for quality content out there and have to filter through all the garbage I don't want to see? It has to be targeted, has to be strategic in what you do.
I love that phrase you use, vanity versus prosperity, because yeah, followers are relatively easy, but getting somebody to open up their wallet and actually buy something, to spend money on a product or service, is an entirely different proposition altogether. And I think many times people don't realize the challenge that you've got there.
Yeah, and I've tried at the supermarket to pay for my food with connections, and they won't take it. They won't take my likes, my connections, any of that stuff. They want cash.
It's so true. Cash is the currency that drives the world, not likes and followers, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So there's this huge differentiation in skills within the marketplace, but at the same time, we're also seeing this move towards a lot of outsourcing, towards more use of freelancers. I think there was a time when you would just go to an agency and they would be a one-stop shop for everything. And agencies still have an incredibly important role to play, but now I think your choices are more diverse. You can have a bunch of different people working on your behalf. How do you see the landscape?
Well, we are not an agency, and I make it clear that we're not. And I have nothing against. There's some, like you said, some really good agencies out there, but many times, I would say 9 out of 10 clients that we take on are people that have been burnt by agencies. There's all of these sort of what I call creepers in the fees. They agree, hey, we're going to put together a print ad, and by the time they're done, the project management fees are 10 times what I'm exaggerating, but much higher than what the actual cost should have been. Or you go to the agency and they tell you, oh, we've got a person who specializes in your field. And the reality is no one there has ever worked in your industrial sector before or understands it. So rather than the way we do, where we've got about 100 different freelance people that we've been using for years, we build a team specific to the strategy and specific to the needs of the customer, with folks that are relevant within that area.
But I think you also highlight another point, is that there was a benefit in the agency model where you turned everything over to them, because they were also an ultimate point of responsibility, right? They were the person that you had a lead at the agency and you could go to if you didn't like something or something was wrong. When companies engage with a lot of freelancers, then there has to be somebody who's coordinating that effort. Otherwise, everybody is just off doing their own thing and there's no strategy, there's no continuity in what they're doing. And I think that's another way that roles like you and I play with a virtual CMO, fractional CMO, you still need somebody, driving the bus.
And that's what we do. But the difference is, if in an agency model, you've got the person running the agency, sometimes they have a sales team who goes out that thinks that they know marketing, but they're really about just getting more and more out of the customer. It's almost like an interior decorator situation where you're going to decorate your home. So you talk about a plan, and before long, every napkin you buy for your house has a commission for them, and the design is more based on what furniture they get the best commission on. Whereas with what we do as a fractional CMO, we're part of the team. It's like having a part-time employee with C-level credentials who's there to build the strategy. So the responsibility is with that person, but the difference is a fractional or however else you want to call it, we have a pool of people that are already vetted, that we know what they're going to charge, we know how they work, we know what the project is, and we're used to working with them on projects specific to that customer. So there's no additional project management fees, because that's what we're doing in our monthly fee for the days or the number of hours that we've negotiated for. And when there's additional services, an agency, when they outsource, they can double, triple whatever they're being billed. In my case, we actually show the invoice of what we're paying, and there's a standard markup for us to manage that project. But at the end of the day, we own the project. The freelancers, if a freelancer screws up for us, we're on the hook, not the freelancer. They're on the hook with us, but we're responsible to that, just as if we were an employee of the company.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And, I really want to get back to this statement that I made earlier, because I see it so often, and I'm sure you run into it as well. So many companies will come back and say, well, I already have a VP of sales and marketing. Why do I need to have somebody in a separate role just for marketing? Isn't marketing a function of sales?
Yeah, again, another most common question that's asked. And the reality is, marketing makes it so that sales can happen. We understand, and we use the data that we get from sales to understand the customer a little bit better and the performance and otherwise. but to truly understand the total scope of the market, to generate the leads, to look at where is the low-lying fruit, all of the analysis that's involved in where to go to market, new regions, being able to hone the messaging, to create the materials, even building the CRM systems in conjunction with the sales team, so that the CRM is something that they can use and like to use, as opposed to an administrative nonsense thing that drives them nuts.
Well, and I think that this also dovetails nicely into the conversation just on leads in general, because what I often see is when marketing is wrapped up underneath the sales function, everything is leads, leads, leads. But there's more to leads than just going out and going to the magic, lead bank and just, purchasing some leads. There's awareness that, drives interest, that then begins to build demand. And it's a nurturing process where you have to sort of take these leads and mature them before they can move over. And I think oftentimes when it's a sales function, there's the temptation to skip all that and say, where can I just quickly find some leads? There's no quick solution.
Yeah, there isn't. But there's a lot of sales guys that have grown up with that kiss or kill sort of mentality. If I don't get it on the first run, go away. One of the big programs that we've built for many clients is exactly what you just called out, a lead nurturing program. So for example, there was a engagement that I was involved with that was selling a product through dealers. And leads were coming into the website, hundreds a day, and someone would just by zip code send it out to the dealer and let it go. Well, the question at hand, and this is where marketing comes in, is, are the leads being handled? Are they actually contacting these people who said they're interested? Are they getting them to the dealership? Are they selling the product? And if they do buy, are they buying theirs? Or are the leads that you're sending enhancing your competitor who's also on that lot? So we built a lead nurturing program where the leads were first qualified and a personal touch occurs, and then introducing them to that dealer network. And then later, after the engagement, they were supposed to be able to follow up and gather all of that data to better know the performance of their dealers.
When it comes to sort of that demand generation and building sort of a real funnel to attract new leads, do you see in your experience that many companies truly don't have a good handle on what their unique value proposition is, what their true differentiators are, and instead it's price and features? Absolutely.
I would say 9 out of 10 companies, the first question that we always ask is, tell me who your ideal customer is. And 9 out of 10 times, nobody can tell me. And when the 10th that can, when we dig into it and look at it, it's not who they thought it was. So I'll give you an example. We were involved in the steel drum industry for a number of years. And they were, as an industry, this particular company was talking about the fact that the drums were made of steel. They were tested in-house. They had in-house authorized government testing for DOT and transportation. They had high quality. All of this was their entire pitch. Everything they were pitching is table stakes. These are all of the basic requirements just to be in that industry. If you want to sell steel drums, you have to be able to test in-house. You have to do all of those things. So we dug in and started to talk to the top customers and the past customers. Why do you do business with this company? Number one response, because they answer the phone. Number two response, because when me as the buyer screw up or we get a run on a product, they're the only ones who can turn around and get them to me immediately. Other companies could take a month. Number three, my salesman's in touch with me all the time and I can reach him anytime I want. Number four was when they screw up and they have a defective product, they own it and fix it within a day or two, not we have a process, it'll be a month before we get back to you. So the entire reason that people were doing business with them had nothing to do with the quality of the product at all. It was they met and exceeded all of the standards in the market. They were huge because people liked them and they got the service and resolved the personal problems that buyers have in that industry. So obviously all of the messaging had to change. The very differentiators they thought they had, first of all, didn't differentiate anything, and second, had no meaning to the customer.
You know, what you've really touched on there is something that I'm such a firm believer in, and it's this understanding of pain points. It's understanding, how a particular product or service is actually going to solve a problem that is going to address some sort of a pain that the customer is having, not what it does and all the capabilities that it has. Like you say, a lot of times that just ends up being table stakes. Chances are your competitors' products do very similar things. But how are you uniquely suited to solve a customer's pain points or a problem that maybe your competitor is not? And what you just described are a lot of service differentiators, had nothing to do with the product.
Yeah. It had nothing. I'll give you another example. Years ago, I was tasked with a U.S. manufacturer of sofas, of upholstered goods. They were looking to get into the South American luxury market. And in the U.S., when you go buy a sofa, a real high-end, thousands of dollar sofa, they show you the inside of the sofa. They show you the springs and how many directions it was hand tied. In Brazil, you would talk about that, and the consumer would go, "I don't give a crap." I mean, literally. That means nothing to me. I want to know if it feels good when I sit in it. I buy a sofa with my butt, was the most common thing that I heard. I want a fancy, beautiful fabric. I want it to look nice. I want it to be comfortable. And I want to be able to tell people I imported it. That was what mattered. So all of the collateral that existed in the US for selling those sofas was useless in Brazil.
I'm so glad you segued into this, because I really do want to leverage your experience working with global brands and talk a little bit about that. Because I think that that's a challenge as we become an increasingly global economy. Businesses want to open up in new markets, but it's not as simple as translating your content from English to French or to German. There's a lot of culture that's involved in this. And the term I always like to use is cultural translation. Just like you said, the same sofa here versus Brazil, but the way the consumer bought it was very different. That's just a difference in culture. That's a difference in buying behavior. So I'd love to hear about your experience and advice that you give businesses as they're thinking to expand into new markets.
The most common thing we encounter with a company that wants to go global is, "Oh, well, we're already exporting, so we know what we're doing." You say, "Okay, well, where are you selling?" And it's always the same pattern. Countries that speak English are first, and folks that we met at a trade show who reached out to us. That's the model that we always get. And that's, I won't, not to be insulting to another country, but I've been at a trade show where people have come up and said, "I am the number one distributor of that product in my entire country." So, "Oh, it's nice to meet the number one guy." You take their business card, they walk away. Next guy comes up. By the end of the day, you've met 7 number ones. So, which is mathematically interesting, because I know people who are into math, their heads just exploded. They're
Right.
But at the end of the day, you really have to understand globally what are your true competitors in the market, not just the product that you make, but what your product may be replacing. When I was with Avery Dennison in the strategic tapes, they were high performance tapes industry. People would say, "Well, you're competing against 3M." You say, "Yeah, 3M is a competitor." So with tape, who else do you compete with? You compete with nails, screws. You compete with clamps. You compete with all of these other things that hold things together. So in the global market, you may think that you've got a solution that works globally, but it culturally isn't a fit. Similar in South America, we did a viability study for undersink waste disposals, like InSinkErator and things like that. And it had no place in the market as far as we could tell, because the reason people have those is because they don't want to clean slop out of the drain. Well, anyone who had the money to be able to afford one of these products also had a housekeeper, maid, cook, or otherwise. And they typically didn't care if that person stuck their hand in the drain to clean out the slop. So it became, well, the only reason to have it is bragging rights. And the more we talked about them and tried to figure it out, we looked at what it would take to move the market. And you would have to sell many, many units to be able to pay the educational part of creating a demand where demand doesn't exist.
And, I think it even goes beyond that. You take a look at translating content, maybe just on your website or whatnot. Even in other English-speaking countries, saying things a certain way is going to be a dead giveaway that you are not really a local merchant. You're not somebody that's established in that country. Or even some of the imagery that you may use, it may seem off because it just doesn't fit in with the culture there. There's a lot to it.
Absolutely. And that's why, like a group like ours, we have resources in about 100 different countries now that we can reach out to. So depending from the network of my working overseas for all these years, depending on where we're going, we bring expertise in from those markets Because the blind spots, no matter who you are, I've been at this for 30 plus years, and I've worked in 100 and something different countries. I have lots and lots of blind spots that have to be taken care of by bringing professionals, people who know more than me, into the project.
So how then do you sort of, you take all this that we've talked about, you talk about lead nurturing, you talk about, having the right kind of messaging, differentiated value propositions, really understanding who your customer is. You package all this stuff up together. Where do you think many companies are making the biggest mistake today?
The biggest mistake is not going back to their brand story and understanding who their customer is and what are the problems that you can solve for them. What are the challenges that they have, and how can you be their hero? And the other mistake is at the other end, that after you've sold, at the end of the day, what do? We want people to know who we are, see our products, buy them, love them, and tell everyone, and become an advocate for that brand. That's what we want. That's what marketing is about. The sales team is involved in part of that, but most companies stop the follow through. We made the sale, next. And it's, wait a minute. You just lost that resource that's going to bring you 10 more customers who have 10 friends that want to buy. So what do you do in terms of your business, and how do you build a strategy around that so that everyone who does business with you becomes an advocate? Think about some of the major brands, the Apples of the world. They come out with a product, nobody's ever had their hand on it, and people are lined up around the corner to buy it because they have an army of advocates for that brand that will believe that whatever they do is going to be fantastic. In the trailer industry, Airstream, people all their lives, oh my God, to have an Airstream, that's the premier in a pull trailer. But at the end of the day, if you take one apart, in my opinion, they're no better than the other ones that are out there. But they have such an army, they would have to screw up for a lot of years before their brand got tarnished, because they spend a lot of their time really building that brand loyalty, that brand advocacy. So the homework up front has to be done, and you got to follow through all the way past sale so that those people are still sticking around and loving what you do. And
becoming those advocates. That's right. And, Apple is a very overused example in marketing just because they do so many things right. But they are one of the few companies that I would say, as an exception, they can talk about a new button that they've added or a new feature that they've added, and people would genuinely get excited about that. Yeah. Because they've done so much work already to establish their value proposition that now people are interested in how little things are enhancing that, where I think a lot of other companies, they have not laid that foundation. And so focusing on those kinds of things is a mistake. They have to establish their value proposition first.
And if you can build that tribe of advocates, think about when some of these companies come out with a new product, it's on the morning news.
That's right. All that free publicity.
Yeah, and the other end of it, which is more in that creative space, imagine what the day that Burger King decided to stick a slice of bacon in their sundae did to their business. Every news show in the world, they're trying to kill us, and people lined up for it. And Little Caesars put how many pounds of bacon on a pizza and became relevant again. It was a company that was on the downfall, disappearing. Those kinds of stunts that get you the free media also create buzz and advocates. The bacon industry, people walk around with bacon t-shirts. When was bacon a status symbol? They were clever. Think about prunes. Nobody would eat prunes. That's what kept grandpa regular.
Right.
What they do, they created an entire strategy around calling them dried plums and how cool and healthy they were. Yeah. And now young people alike, everyone eats dried plums. Nobody would eat a prune.
Right.
Hate to say it, it's the same thing. All of those are great examples of how you build a brand and create advocates for it, because you understand why people don't buy it, why they do, and what are the benefits.
Well, I love this whole concept too of the brand story, because that is so important. And we live in such a visual time right now, where there are so many great opportunities to create visual content to support that brand story. And I still see so many businesses missing the opportunity. There's a product actually that I use, but I was evaluating it, and it was a product that helped you make videos. Mm-hmm. And I went to their website and they didn't have any videos. And I thought, well, this is awfully odd for a company that helps you make videos not to have any videos, because I really wanted to see the product in action. To me, that was just a huge miss.
Yeah. It's amazing how many people don't walk the walk There's an expression in Portuguese that because they usually the barbecue, you cook meat on a metal spit.
Yep.
And they joke that the blacksmith cooks his on a wooden spit. That he doesn't have he's so busy with what he does that he doesn't even have time to do for himself and show what he does.
I like that.
Yeah. It's amazing to me how so many companies sort of miss that as they grow their business. High tech companies with websites that look like a word page. It doesn't make any sense.
And too much text. You can tell a story, but you don't want to make it your life story, right? You've got to be succinct. You've got to get to the point. You've got to very quickly help people understand what your brand differentiators, your value proposition is. And before we sort of wrap things up today, I would also love to get your thoughts on automation tools. I know you mentioned, some marketing automation, CRM, both hugely important, I think, in the marketing space. What do you look at when you're talking to your clients? What kinds of things do you recommend to say these are really must-haves for your organization?
Again, I don't have a must-have for any. It depends on what their needs are and what the strategy is. But one of the, like in a CRM, for example, when you've got guys that are putting out multiple proposals, there should be automation to remind them the proposal's out for follow-up. There should be automation for tasks and for activities, campaigns, lead generation, lead nurturing programs. There's a million different pieces where I think a lot of companies miss is that they automate in such a generic way that people feel like they're being treated by a robot. Many automation programs backfire because people see them as a cost cutter. They see it as a time saver. But no matter what anyone says, that personal touch is still an absolute requirement in being able to build brand advocates. So it really depends. There's lots of crazy marketing automation programs that I've seen out there that have all the whistles and bells and alienate the customers.
I think that's true. I would probably take it one step further than you do. I'm such a believer in CRM because I think we've all experienced times, when we call into that call center, they have no idea that we called in,
Yep.
a week ago. They have no idea that we have an outstanding service issue. You've got to be able to know how your customers are interacting with your organization and what people in your organization are doing. And you've got everything from free HubSpot out there to very expensive CRM platforms from Salesforce and others. It's an investment, but if you can get people using it, I think it can be a great aid to your organization and your customer service.
Yeah, we could do an entire other podcast conversation on how to build really positive CRMs that the sales team loves. The first one I ever used, this was a long time ago, it was an electronic babysitter that made sure that we could be watched. And that if we got fired or quit, they had all of our secret sauce. That's what it was to the sales team. It was not a way to make us better as sales folks.
Yeah.
It was designed by a finance guy and an IT guy.
Yeah.
Not interactive. A properly done CRM is like having 2 or 3 virtual assistants working for you every day. And a crappy CRM is what wastes your entire Saturday because you got to update the darn thing because the boss said so. That's
right. And, it's all about the data too. Junk data in, junk data out, right? It's got to be good data and everybody has to be using it consistently.
Yep. I've done multiple implementations over the years, and it's really, when it's done right, man, it's fantastic. And when it's done wrong, it's a nightmare.
Andrew, this has been so great to be able to talk shop with somebody who does the same thing that I do. And I would love for you to be able to share with the audience or how they can get in touch with you, how they can find Fangled Tech on the web and any social media channels that you use as well.
Sure. First of all, we're on LinkedIn. You can find me by my name on LinkedIn. And our website is fangledtech.com. What happened?
That's perfect. No, you're still here. You're still here. Go ahead.
No, something flashed on the screen. Yeah, at fangledtech.com. And also we do an interesting program. I give about an hour of my time a week, sometimes a little bit more, with what I call the Pick My Brain sessions. So if somebody has a marketing concept and just wants to talk it through to see if there's a fit, they can reach out to us and we can schedule those. And basically it's a 30-minute period of time to talk through what they're doing and see if we're the right fit, or if we refer them to someone else out there to help move forward in their brand story, or their strategy, or whatever it is that they need to do to grow their business.
I think that's important because, as you discussed before, there are people who've got expertise in B2C, expertise in B2B, expertise like you have in global industries or specific segments of industries out there. And so it's important to find somebody that's a good match for your business.
Absolutely. And there's a big difference in the B2B marketing world as opposed to the consumer market. What we do is very different. And just now, in this point in time, industry and manufacturers in the commercial space are starting to understand that marketing is more than a sell sheet, a brochure, and a box of donuts.
Yeah, just think of all these businesses that have had to cancel their trade show marketing plans, and that used to be the staple of what they would do to generate some leads. So yeah, things have changed pretty drastically. Yeah. I will make sure that we put all of that in the show notes, both here on the live stream channels and when the podcast is released. This has been a great discussion. I really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. And there's been a lot of great information shared here.
Absolutely. I enjoyed it very much. Thanks so much for inviting me. This was great.
Thanks.